I never believed in ghosts. Even after what happened in the small village near Uti, I tried to convince myself there had to be a logical explanation. But some houses don't want to be explained. They want to be remembered. 5 years ago, my friend Arjun invited me to stay at his ancestral house during our summer break. It was located far from the town center, surrounded by tall eucalyptus trees that leaned toward the roof like they were listening. Don't wander around at night, Arjun's grandmother warned us when we arrived. I laughed. That was my first mistake. The house was old, not just old in age, but old in feeling. The wooden floors creaked even when nobody was walking. The walls had cracks like thin veins spreading in every direction. And there was a long corridor upstairs that led to a locked room at the very end. That room had no windows. And no one talked about it. The first night was normal. Or at least, it felt normal. Around 2:13 a.m., I woke up. I don't know why. Maybe it was the silence. Or maybe it was the sound of someone slowly dragging their fingers across the wooden floor outside our room. Scratch, scratch, scratch. At first, I thought it was a rat. Then I heard footsteps, slow, measured, stopping right outside our door. I held my breath. The handle turned slightly, not fully, just enough to make that tiny clicking sound. Arjun was asleep next to me. Or at least, I thought he was. Because when I whispered his name, he didn't respond. He was staring at the ceiling, wide awake. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. Without moving his eyes, he said, "It comes every night." My blood went cold. The next morning, I demanded answers. Arjun didn't want to talk. His grandmother looked nervous when I mentioned the locked room upstairs. Finally, the village caretaker told me the story. 30 years ago, Arjun's uncle locked himself inside that room. He claimed someone was following him. He said the house was learning him. Nobody understood what he meant. One night, they heard him screaming. By the time they broke the door down, the room was empty. The windows were sealed. The only thing inside was a message carved into the wooden floor. It doesn't like to be ignored. After that, they locked the room permanently. But sometimes, at night, the scratching started. That evening, curiosity defeated fear. I wanted to see the room. Around midnight, while everyone was asleep, I took the old brass key from the kitchen drawer. The corridor upstairs felt longer than before. The air was colder, heavier. The door stood at the end, silent, waiting. My hands trembled as I unlocked it. The door creaked open slowly. Inside, the room was empty. Just dust, and deep scratch marks on the floor, as if someone had been dragged across it. I stepped inside. That's when the door slammed shut behind me. The temperature dropped instantly. My breath turned visible, and I heard it, not outside the room, inside, behind me. A soft whisper, "You came back." I froze. There was no one there. But the scratches on the floor began to move, as if something invisible was carving new words. I watched in horror as letters formed slowly. "You shouldn't have opened it." I ran to the door. It wouldn't budge. The whisper grew louder, closer, right next to my ear. "This house remembers every heartbeat." Something cold wrapped around my ankle. I looked down. Nothing. But I felt fingers tightening, pulling, dragging me toward the center of the room. And then I saw it. A shadow, not on the wall, not on the floor, in the air, a shape darker than darkness itself. And it was smiling. When I woke up, I was outside the house, on the front steps. It was morning. Arjun and his grandmother stood over me. The upstairs room door was locked again. The key was back in the kitchen drawer. As if nothing happened, but something had, because carved into my forearm were thin red lines. Fresh scratches. 3 words. "Don't ignore me."